At a high school, an elderly, kind-hearted, poor black janitor quietly walked more than 12 miles from his home to the school every day just to unlock the gates on time. No one really noticed until a group of students found out and secretly raised money to buy him a car. But then, a teacher accused him of manipulating the kids for personal gain. Just when everything seemed to fall apart, one video changed everything and made the entire school rise to their feet and applaud him. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thoughts. Herman Brooks didn't stand out much, at least not the way people expected you to. He was 67, thin, a little hunched at the shoulders like someone who had spent too many years carrying weight no one else saw. His skin was dark, his hair pepper gray, and his hands, they were worn. Not shaky, but steady in a way that made you think he could fix anything, if not with tools, then with time and patience. Every morning, before the sun had even wiped the sleep from its eyes, Herman tied the same pair of old cracked boots. The laces were frayed. The soles had gone soft from years of pounding the pavement. He stepped outside his modest one-room home on the east side of town. The kind of neighborhood you only drove through if your GPS glitched or your heart had reason to care. Herman walked more than 12 miles to East Willow High School. Every single day. Through rain, through frost, through heat thick enough to wring sweat from your soul before breakfast. He wasn't a teacher. Not anymore. Those days were gone. Taken from him years ago after budget cuts, health scares, and the quiet ways institutions forget people who've given too much and ask too little. Now, he was the gatekeeper, the man who unlocked the front doors, nodded to sleepy students, swept the entrance before first bell. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for help. That morning, the wind had a bite to it. Not cruel, but sharp enough to make most folks wince and run from car to building in a hurry. Herman walked through it like he always did, slow, steady, hands tucked into the sleeves of his oversized green jacket, the zipper broken just below the chin. When he reached the school gate, he checked his watch. 6:27, right on time. He pulled out the keys from the chain he kept looped through his belt. His fingers, stiff from the cold, struggled for a second with the lock. He let out a breath, warm and cloudy, before the gate finally clicked open. "Morning, Mr. Brooks," came a voice from behind. Herman turned. Caleb Morris, a lanky junior with a backpack that looked heavier than he did, stood there with two friends trailing behind. "Morning, Caleb," Herman said, his voice low and calm, carrying the gentle rumble of someone who had been up since 4:30. Caleb hesitated. "Did you, walk again?" Herman smiled, not with his mouth, but with his eyes. "Ain't no buses run to where I live, son." Caleb looked down, embarrassed. He knew that. Everyone knew that, but asking felt necessary, like maybe if he asked enough times, something about it would change. "Just don't seem right," Caleb mumbled. "Lot of things in life don't," Herman replied, pushing the gate all the way open. "We show up anyway." Inside, the school was still dark, the halls holding on to the night. Herman flipped on the lights near the entrance, then turned back just in time to see Caleb digging into his backpack. "Hey, Caleb pulled out a small packet of hand warmers. "These are for you." Herman looked at them, then at Caleb. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, grateful but cautious. He took the pack slowly. "Thank you, son." Caleb shrugged, tried to play it off. "Got extra from my mom's car. They expire soon anyway." Herman didn't push. He nodded once, pocketed the gift, and kept walking down the hallway. Behind him, Caleb watched. Watched the man who came in early. The man who shoveled snow off the stairs before anyone arrived. The man who smiled even when no one spoke to him. The man who walked 12 miles because he believed a locked door shouldn't stop a school day. And deep inside Caleb something shifted. Not guilt, not pity, but respect. And the beginnings of a quiet fire. Words spread, not all at once, but like a gentle ripple across the surface of a still pond. First it was Caleb and his two closest friends. Jordan, who never said much, and Emily, who always carried 2 granola bars in her coat and gave one away without a second thought. They noticed how Herman paused every few steps on some mornings, pressing a hand against his lower back when he thought no one was watching. They saw how his shoes were splitting along the edges, the sole flapping ever so slightly when he lifted his foot to step up the curb. In the cafeteria during lunch, Caleb leaned in close across the table, whispering with a seriousness his friends rarely saw. "We should do something," he said. "Not for credit, not for some school project, just because it's right." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Get him a car," Caleb answered without hesitation. Jordan let out a low whistle. "Man, that's not like buying someone a cup of coffee." "I'm not saying we do it overnight," Caleb said, voice firm, "but what if everyone chipped in just a little?" Emily nodded slowly. "He walks 12 miles every day. That's insane. He never says a word about it. Doesn't ask anyone for anything." "That's exactly why we should," Caleb replied. That night, in the soft glow of his bedroom desk lamp, Caleb set up a fundraising page. He titled it "Let's Walk with Mr. Brooks." He uploaded a picture, one he had snapped months ago during a school assembly. Herman standing quietly near the exit door, hands clasped, watching over students like a silent sentinel. The caption beneath it read, "He opens our doors every day. Let's open one for him." He didn't blast it to the whole school, not yet. He sent it to a few classmates, people he trusted. Then they shared it. And they shared it. Quietly, respectfully. Nobody was shouting for attention, no hashtags, no fake tears. Just real conversations in hallways, in locker rows, during late-night texts that ended with, "This feels like something good." By the end of the week, nearly 40 students had contributed. Some gave $1, some gave 10. One senior, who worked evenings at a local diner, handed Caleb an envelope with 25 in cash. "Tell him he's the only grown-up who's ever opened the gate for me and meant it," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Herman didn't know. Not yet. He still arrived each morning with the same quiet smile, the same green jacket zipped halfway, the same hands carrying the same plastic shovel when snow dusted the walkway. He held the door for teachers, picked up wrappers students left behind without complaint, handed out peppermints to kids who looked like they'd had a rough start to the day. One morning, as Emily passed by him in the hall, she said, "You ever get tired, Mr. Brooks?" Herman looked at her, eyes kind but honest. "I get tired of how the world moves sometimes, but I don't get tired of being here." She smiled. "You're kind of amazing, you know that?" He chuckled low in his throat. "I'm just an old man with a key ring." But the truth was he was more, and slowly, quietly, the school was starting to see it. It was a Tuesday morning when the trouble started. The hallways buzzed like usual, sneakers squeaking against linoleum, lockers slamming, students laughing half asleep. Herman stood by the front entrance, same as every day, nodding to passing kids, holding the door a moment longer for a late-running freshman balancing 3 books and a trumpet case. Inside the main office, Mr. Richard Lane stood with arms crossed. He was a history teacher, mid-50s, always wore a brown tweed jacket with elbow patches and had a voice that made students sit up straighter, but not because they liked him. He wasn't a cruel man outright. He just saw the world in categories, order and disorder, right and wrong, respect earned and respect misplaced. To him, things had a place and people had a role, and in his view, Herman Brooks was stepping out of his. "I'm telling you," Lane said, looking directly at Principal Karen Whitmore, "there's something going on here. Students are giving this man money. I've seen it with my own eyes. Cash. Quiet handshakes. It's unprofessional. It's manipulative." Principal Whitmore, a composed woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a tired smile, looked up from her monitor. "Are you suggesting Mr. Brooks is coercing students?" "I'm suggesting he's taking advantage of their innocence," Lane said firmly. "All this. Hero worship. They think he's some kind of saint. But he's a janitor, Karen. A janitor who walks to work. That doesn't mean we should treat him like he's above reproach." Whitmore leaned back, folding her hands. "You're saying the students are giving him money?" Blaine nodded. "Yes, and he's accepting it. Who knows what else? He's not a staff counselor. He's not certified. He shouldn't be having these private talks with them in the first place. This whole thing smells off." There was a long pause. Outside the office window, Herman stood in the courtyard, gently brushing off benches from the night's frost. His breath hung in the air. He moved slowly, but with care. "I'll talk to him," Whitmore said finally. An hour later, Herman was called to the office. He came in without hesitation, nodding politely at the secretary, then at Principal Whitmore. He removed his cap, held it respectfully in his hands, and waited. "Herman," she began gently, "I need to ask you something. It's not easy, and I want you to know this conversation doesn't mean we're accusing you of anything. But there's been a concern raised." Herman stood straight, shoulders squared. "I understand, ma'am." "Mr. Lane says he's seen students giving you money. Is that true?" Herman blinked, his face calm, but something in his eyes shifted. Disbelief, maybe? Or disappointment? "I haven't asked for a penny from anyone," he said. "I wouldn't, ever. But yes, some of the kids have offered small things. A hot drink, a few gave me cards. A boy gave me socks last week, said his grandma knitted them. I thanked him. That's all." Whitmore hesitated. "And you're not aware of any organized fundraiser?" Herman shook his head. "No, ma'am. But I did wonder. Caleb Morris, he's been looking at me different. Kinder. I figured something was up, but I didn't pry." There was silence. Whitmore looked down, then back up. Some people feel this kind of attention creates discomfort, that it disrupts boundaries. Herman's voice was quiet, steady. "Ma'am, I show up, I do my job. I speak kindly when I can. I don't preach, I don't ask, but if my being here makes others uneasy, I can—" "Step back." She stared at him for a moment. The air in the office felt heavier now. "No," she said finally. "No, Herman, we're not asking you to step back. I just needed to hear it from you." He nodded, bowed his head slightly, and turned to leave. As he walked past the secretary's desk, his steps were a touch slower than usual. His hand trembled, just enough that his keyring jingled when he slipped it back onto his belt. In the hallway, Caleb stood frozen, watching Herman's back retreat down the corridor. He had heard bits of the conversation, not every word, but enough. Later that day, Mr. Lane stood by the teacher's lounge window, arms folded again. "Just wait," he muttered to a colleague. "They'll see. You give these people a spotlight and they start to believe they deserve the stage." What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that something much bigger than suspicion was already moving, quietly, unstoppably. That night, Caleb didn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with something he couldn't name, part anger, part urgency, and something deeper, too, like responsibility. He kept seeing Mr. Brooks' face as he walked out of the office, that look in his eyes that wasn't hurt exactly, but something sadder. A kind of acceptance that shouldn't have to exist. By 2 a.m, Caleb was sitting at his desk, hoodie up, laptop open. He opened his phone's gallery. Over the past few months, he'd recorded dozens of moments without thinking much of it. Small clips of Mr. Brooks sweeping the snow off the front steps, picking up trash after lunch, kneeling to tie a little girl's shoelace when her hands were too cold to manage. There was one video of him standing silently beside a sobbing student after a failed exam, just keeping her company until she could speak again. He never tried to fix things. He just showed up. Caleb started dragging clips into a folder. He added a photo of Mr. Brooks smiling outside the school, backlit by the morning sun. Then he opened a blank project in his editing software. He titled the video, "The Man Who Walks for Us." He didn't script anything, he didn't need to. His voice came naturally as he recorded the narration. "This is Mr. Herman Brooks," he began, his tone low but clear. "He walks 12 miles a day to open the doors to our school, not because he has to, because he chooses to, because he believes we matter enough to show up for." The footage played. each clip stitched together with soft fades. Mr. Brooks brushing snow, Mr. Brooks picking up a book dropped by a rushing sophomore, Mr. Brooks handing out peppermints during finals week. You don't see him in the yearbook, he's not in the staff photos, but he's here, every single day. Quiet, kind, present. The music swelled, just a simple piano melody, nothing dramatic. Never asked for thanks. He never asked for anything at all. But that didn't stop people from talking about him like he didn't belong, from assuming the worst because of how he looked, because he was too good at making people feel seen. Then came the final clip. A shaky phone video of Mr. Brooks helping a teacher carry a broken box of supplies up the stairs, the sunlight catching the sweat on his brow. As they reached the top, the teacher said something Caleb couldn't make out, and Mr. Brooks just laughed and replied, "I'm not young, but I've still got some left in me." The screen went black. Then, in white letters, "Let's show him we see him too." Caleb uploaded the video that morning before school. He didn't tell anyone. He just posted it on the school's private group and walked away from his phone. By lunch, the video had over 3,000 views. By last period, it had reached the local news station. In classrooms, students passed their phones around with quiet gasps. Teachers paused lessons. Some even played the video out loud, letting the room fall into a hush as Mr. Brooks' image filled the screen. Mr. Lane didn't say a word. That afternoon, Principal Whitmore called Caleb into her office. She looked different, less composed, more human. Her eyes were red. "I watched the video," she said. Caleb nodded. He wasn't sure what else to do. "I didn't know all that," she continued. "I knew he was kind, but I didn't really see. He shouldn't have to ask to be seen," Caleb said softly. "No," Whitmore whispered. "He shouldn't." By the next morning, the GoFundMe page had reached nearly $20,000. Alumni were donating. A former teacher sent a message from Chicago saying Mr. Brooks had once given her a ride home when her car broke down. 20 years ago. In the hallway, students started nodding at Mr. Brooks with more than just routine politeness. They stopped to talk. They shook his hand. And for the first time in a long time, Mr. Brooks looked confused. He wasn't used to being noticed. He wasn't used to being seen. But all of that was about to change. It was Friday morning. The sky had cleared after a long week of gray clouds and rain, and the sun poured down on East Willow High with an almost theatrical warmth. The wind was soft, the kind that gently lifted the edges of jackets and made flags dance without frenzy. Something in the air felt different, electric, but calm. Mr. Herman Brooks made his usual walk, 12 long miles from the east side. He didn't know this would be the last time. His pace was steady. He had no idea that just behind the school's brick walls, hundreds of students were already gathered in the courtyard, whispering, shifting from foot to foot, clutching hand-drawn signs and balloons and banners with messages like, "Thank you, Mr. Brooks," and "You walked for us. We stand for you." Principal Whitmore stood at the front, next to a small stage that hadn't been there yesterday. Beside her was a long, covered object, tarped, tied down, sitting on 4 wheels. Inside the building, Caleb stood near the front doors, eyes fixed on the security camera feed. When he saw Mr. Brooks approaching the front gate, he turned to a teacher and nodded. "He's here." The teacher gave a thumbs up, then pushed the button on the school's intercom system. "All students and staff, please report to the front courtyard for a special announcement." Mr. Brooks heard it as he reached the main door. He paused, looked around, and gave a small shrug. "Guess I'll find out like everyone else," he muttered to himself. As he stepped through the door, Caleb was waiting. "Mr. Brooks," he said, voice steady but tight with nerves. "Would you walk with me?" Herman blinked. "Sure, son." "Everything okay?" Caleb didn't answer. He just led him through the hall, out into the courtyard, and there it was. Hundreds of students, shoulder to shoulder, teachers lining the edges, parents, even a few local reporters, signs waving, cheers rising. Mr. Brooks stopped in his tracks. He looked left. He looked right. His mouth opened, then closed. His hands hovered at his sides, uncertain of where to go. Caleb placed a hand gently on his arm. "Come on, sir." They walked to the front together. Principal Whitmore stepped forward with a microphone. "Good morning," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Today we gather not to celebrate an exam or a game or a fundraiser. We gather to honor a man who has walked miles, not just across town, but into the hearts of every person here." The crowd quieted. "Mr. Herman Brooks," she continued, "you came here each day without complaint. You swept our steps, picked up our messes, gave us kindness we didn't always return. You were steady. You were present. And we were blind to it for too long." She turned toward the covered object, but no more. 2 students pulled the tarp away. Underneath was a gently used silver sedan, clean, polished, shining like something sacred. A bright red bow sat on the hood. A license plate read, "Walk no more." For a moment no one moved. Then the crowd erupted. Cheers, applause, whistles, shouts. Mr. Brooks took a step back, hands covering his mouth. His eyes filled, and he tried, truly tried, to hold it in. But the tears came. He looked at the car, then at the students, then at Caleb. "I don't," he began, voice cracking. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Caleb said, stepping closer. "You already said everything by showing up." Mr. Brooks let out a breath that sounded like relief and grief and joy all twisted together. "I never thought I mattered like this," he said softly. "I never thought anyone was watching." "We were," Principal Whitmore said, stepping beside him. "We just took too long to see." Students began chanting his name. "Mr. Brooks! Mr. Brooks!" He laughed through the tears, shaking his head. "You kids are going to get me in trouble with my heart." Caleb reached into his pocket and handed him the keys. "You earned this 1,000 times over." Herman took the keys slowly, staring at them like they were something fragile. He walked over to the car, opened the door, slid into the driver's seat. He ran his hands over the wheel, then looked back through the window. "I've walked a long way in this life," he said, loud enough for the front row to hear. "But today, I'm driving home." And when he pulled out of that courtyard, slow, careful, his head still shaking in disbelief, the students parted like a sea, cheering as he passed. And for once, the man who had opened doors for everyone else finally had one opened for him, not because he demanded it, but because he showed the world how to be good, one quiet step at a time. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.